Hey friends, welcome to Q on Q. We're glad you're with us this week. It's been a beautiful stretch of weather where we are. Little rain, I think we had one day of it maybe, but for the most part it's been fairly seasonal or even a little bit warm at times. We'll take it this time of year. Beautiful weather as I look out the window right now as we continue with our new series, Let's Go to the Movies. If you weren't able to join us last time, let me give you a very quick recap. So for a few weeks, I'm going to be borrowing titles of some popular movies and connecting them to some very real and applicable lessons in life and from the scriptures. Last time we talked about the 1993 film Groundhog Day and how the weatherman keeps reliving the same day over and over again because he doesn't change his actions. It's only when he redeems his reputation as a first-class jerk and when he's accepted as no longer being the man that he once was that he wakes up and finds February 3rd has commenced. So this week, we're going to jump ahead a few years after that first movie to perhaps a lesser-known movie, the 2006 Adam Sandler film Click. In the movie, Sandler plays architect Michael Newman, who is consistently bullied by his overbearing boss and often prioritizes work over his family. One night, unable to keep track of all the multiple remote controls for various devices his family has, Michael goes to Bed Bath & Beyond to buy a universal remote and stumbles around various departments before falling asleep on a display bed. When he wakes up, he enters the Beyond door and accepts a free remote control that can be used to control reality, much like a television, but it can also control the universe. He uses it at work to cause lighthearted mischief and skip past minor inconveniences. Essentially, his body's on autopilot, going through the motions of everyday life while his mind skips ahead. Well, Michael skips ahead and misses significant milestones and storylines in his family's lives. The remote, having learned Michael's preferences, starts to get glitchy and time skips automatically. Every time he tries to throw it away, destroy it, try to throw it outside or whatever, the remote just keeps reappearing. Many years go by, and many things, both wanted and unwanted, happen in the story. Michael reawakens in the present at Bed Bath & Beyond before entering the Beyond door and believes he was dreaming, seeing it as a sign to make a change in his life. Well, the remote from his experience reappears in his house, and realizing his experience with the remote was a warning rather than a dream, Michael throws away the remote before going to enjoy the company of his family. If you've never seen the movie, I apologize again for spoiling the ending this week. I'm going to be doing that at the start of every one of these episodes just to get the plot across. But it's one you might want to check out. It's kind of a heavy storyline mixed with comedy, seriousness, and its own highs and lows. So this week's topic is living in the present moment. So often our mind is either in the past, focused on what didn't work out, who did us wrong, mistakes we've made, or in the future, thinking about our goals, what we're having for dinner, or something bigger, like worrying about health or finances. There's nothing wrong with thinking about what might be coming up or reminiscing about what once was. But the problem is that so many of us are stuck there so much of the time, we miss the present right in front of us. Today, I want to talk about the importance of being fully engaged in the present, making the most of each moment, loving your family, appreciating the things God has placed in your life. As I read through the scriptures, one of the most striking qualities about the way Jesus lived his life is that no matter who he interacted with, he was always fully present. And when you look at the way he lived, not just what he taught, but the way he lived, people were never an inconvenience. They were opportunities. And much as we say we want to be just like that, the fact is, most of the time, we're not. We're not always fully engaged with what's right in front of us. I think about young kids telling their parents about their school day when the parents are just scrolling through social media and going, yeah, that's nice. They're not paying a bit of attention. They're just going through the motions. I think about the rock concert where somebody is so concerned with getting likes and subscribers on their social media channels, they live out the entire concert experience through their phone camera lens, recording stuff instead of being in the present moment. I think about the person who dwells on regret instead of allowing restoration and moving forward. Deep down inside, we all want to be where our feet are, both physically and mentally. in the happy moments and the sad moments, in the up moments and the down moments, in the powerful and the quiet times. But we don't always allow ourselves to be present when moments seem annoying or inconvenient or disruptive, even. Personally, I think about a time earlier in my life when I was a yes man. If you've been a long time listener, I'm sure you've heard me talk about this. I used to say yes to helping everyone with everything. And not that it wasn't good for me to serve or to help others, but it literally filled my schedule. I could even use the word cluttered. I was saying yes to doing things I really had no business doing, experience wise or time wise. I said yes to helping everybody with everything. And it was one day when one of my kids asked, I can't remember which one it was, if I was going to be at their event that day or if I had to work again. And that set off an alarm for me, and it ignited a change. As a teacher, I try to keep my class moving in a way that keeps my kids engaged and interested and on task. Studies show that by the time I got to the end of that last sentence, a fourth of you were already thinking about something else. Now imagine as a teacher, if you're giving the information and trying to keep students engaged, how many of them are thinking about other things? Just a few moments from now, I might lose more of you. Studies show that over half of people will start focusing on other things within just a few short sentences. Still with me out there? Maybe you have this very podcast on in the background and you're multitasking or doing 100 things or just listening to check a box. Well, if that's you, I'd encourage you to stop what you're doing and take the next short period of time to just listen and become fully immersed in the message I have for you today. Harvard did a study and found 47% of people reported regularly having their mind focused on something other than what was going on in the present. That means for half of your life, while you're awake at least, your mind is not fully engaged where the rest of your body is. I could go off on a pretty big tangent here about how cell phones have contributed to this, but I don't want that to be the sole focus today. I will talk about that a little bit later, but I do want to say this. Statistics show the average cell phone user touches their screen 2,500 to 3,000 times a day, with the top 10% saying they touch it as much as 5,000 times a day. That is a lot of time for you not to be in the moment. So why do you think we're often not fully present? And I mean, what really causes it? I'm talking about our schedules and our phones, but think about the other things. What causes us to really be or not be in the moment? This was hard for me to process a little bit because sometimes we just think about schedules or to-do lists or things that keep us, our mind in so many other directions. But deep down, I think a reason that causes us to not be present fully is a lack of faith. And I know that's hard to say, and some of you may be out there saying, nah, I don't know where you're getting that from. I'm not saying you don't believe or you don't trust, but here's the deal. Maybe we get all freaked out about something that happened, and our mind is fixated on figuring it out and undoing it. Maybe we're all freaked out about what's going to happen in the future. The only way we can truly be present in the moment and not let those things steal us from being there is to surrender the past we can't change and trust God with the future we can't control. Let me say that again. We must surrender the past we can't change and trust God with the future that we don't fully control. It's been proven by studies, and honestly, just looking at people's faces, that all of us find ourselves from time to time feeling overwhelmed by the schedule we try to keep in just 24 hours a day. None of us are excluded, except maybe those of you who are retired, but I hear you get busier when you retire, just in a different way. We all have to consider the value of doing whatever it is we're doing. Why? Because maybe we'd just rather be somewhere else. In other words, we don't live in the moment because we don't fully give value to what we're doing. Could it maybe be we allow ourselves to occupy our time with things that really don't matter so much? So how do we set ourselves up to be more intentional, more focused on living in the moment? Well, I think one big thing, this is probably the biggest one, is to shift our perspective a little bit about the things we do. You've heard me talk about perspective before. How many times do we find ourselves putting off till tomorrow what we could do today. With all the things we have to do, connections we make, expectations we have, it happens pretty easily. Or maybe we have the perspective of, oh, when this happens, I'll do that. Almost like we're waiting for the moment to happen. Things like when I get a job, I'll start giving to that charity. Or when I have a bigger house, I'll start getting together with my family more. Or when I change jobs, I can start spending more time with my family. The truth is, that then may never come. Why is missing the present and focusing on the future concerning, even, dare I say, dangerous? Consider Proverbs chapter 27, verse 1. It says this in the NIV. Do not boast about tomorrow, for you do not know what a day may bring. The uncertainties of life, the dangers of overconfidence, the importance of humility, and the necessity of looking forward to each day. And yet, many of us are so driven and so goal-oriented. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying goals are bad. I love making to-do lists. But some of us get so focused on just that concept, we're missing out on life, forgetting that life is literally happening right in front of us. But if we can shift our perspective, recognizing that the right time is now, we can find ourselves engaged, connected, and we can turn our thens into nows. And so you and I need to start living now. Today wasn't an accident. God made this day to put you in this time, in this place, to move you one step closer to the person He's called you to be. So it's up to us to change our perspective, to make the choice to celebrate this day, be intentional and deliberate, knowing that the right time is now. Have you ever thought about the difference between living in the moment and living for the moment? Living for the moment is living with a short-term perspective. Living in the moment is not allowing yesterday or tomorrow to rob you of today's joys. Yesterday is gone, and tomorrow's not here yet. Focusing on yesterday invites worry and what-ifs, and living in fear of tomorrow invites ulcers and high blood pressure. Here's a good description of living in the moment. The scripture in Philippians 4, 6 through 7. Paul's talking about how to find the most joy in life. It says this in the Message version. I love this translation. Don't fret or worry. Instead of worrying, pray. Let petitions and praises shape your worries into prayers, letting God know your concerns. Before you know it, a sense of God's wholeness, everything coming together for good, will come and settle you down. It's wonderful what happens when Christ displaces worry at the center of your life. When we learn to live like this, we live in the moment. This is where every moment of every day is lived to its fullest, without worry or fear of the past or the future. If you're struggling with living in the now, being present in this moment, shift that perspective. Let me give you a few practical tips on how you can start making that. First, start small. Try to notice little things that are happening around you. I'm not saying you have to notice everything, but try to pay more attention to your daily routines, and you might find it's actually a lot more interesting than you thought. Open the front door in the morning and notice the sunrise. Wait for that extra little squeeze as you tuck in your child at night. Then think about how you spend your time. I talk an awful lot about schedules, priorities, being busy. Actually take a look at your schedule and weed out things you don't want to do anymore. Things you don't find fulfillment in, or things that are literally sucking the life out of you, if you can, so you can start focusing on the things and people that matter to you. Here's one I hinted to earlier and probably obvious to us. Start limiting your time on your phone and other electronic devices. If you're my age or older, you know electronics haven't always had the presence in our lives that they do now. I got my first computer and cell phone in college. I was 24 when the iPod was invented. I haven't always had it. But let's be honest, electronics have transformed our world. And in many ways, they can be a tremendous time saver. But if you're like most of the population, they have also become what I would call a huge time suck. You know what I mean? Quick look at your phone to check your email can quickly become a 30-minute swipe through every social media feed you have to see who's doing what. And once you finish looking, you go back again just to see who posted in the last 5 minutes. There's ways to monitor and limit your active time and active hours on your devices. So, unless you have to be on them, make the conscious decision to limit your screen time. We preach it to our kids, yet many of us don't do it ourselves. And last but not least, start noticing. Be aware. This one's kind of a big topic and maybe hard to pinpoint a specific thing to do, but how many times a day does somebody ask how you are and you just say fine, don't even ask how they are and just walk along? Just like it was an interaction, they came, they went, it's done. Or if you do ask, it's a quick interaction and you don't invest any time in really understanding. What if we took time, even just a minute, to dive deeper? Somebody says they're not having a great day. Why not ask them if there's anything you can do to help? Somebody's having a great day. Why not celebrate their success? More engaging interactions with the people around us, our lives suddenly become more focused on the right now. Living in the present can seem like an obvious thing, right? But when we really do truly start to take a look, we find, just like in the movie, that we miss things. Maybe it was intentional, maybe it wasn't, but we miss things. Moments pass by, opportunities sneak away, relationships start to fade. It's up to us to be intentional about being present in the present. And yes, I know it's easier said than done. As I said earlier, we all have 1,001 things we're doing. It's how we prioritize those, look at them, and look at the daily things we maybe take for granted that will allow us to reshape or rethink our approach to the everyday. This past summer, my family and I made a list. I am very fortunate as a teacher to have a little time off in the summer, and I asked my kids this year and my wife to make a bucket list of sorts. The list was anything and everything they wanted to do over the summer if money and time was no object. 1-day trips, 5-day trips, whatever it was. So we sat down and we looked at our budget and saw what we could do, and off we went. And while we were doing those things on that list, we had one simple rule. We had to be in the moment. While seeing a show, no surfing on social media. While spending time having a nice dinner, no responding to work emails. The experiences, the trips were all wonderful, but they paled in comparison to the moments where we just connected as a family, where we were engaged fully, even in the mindless chatter or jokes or things that we said. The connections were made. At one point in my life, I used to be all about the major recognition and the big moments. You know, those special one-off times with a trophy or an award that I thought would be so momentous. But those came and went just as quickly as the day my kids learned to tie their shoes for the first time. The more I've been fully present, I've begun to recognize the most powerful moments are often the smallest ones. The times that often mean the most aren't on the mountaintops, but they're in the valley, or they're on the hillside, or along life's narrow pathway. The whole time I've been sharing today, I kept thinking about a quote that was said to me many years ago, and I've seen come back in my life time and time again. And it said this: time is the only currency you spend without knowing your balance, so use it wisely. Don't miss what you have now, pursuing what you want later. Don't miss what you have now, dwelling on what could have been. This moment where you are in your life right now, this moment matters. If you fully engage with the people God allows to cross your path, you have a moment to experience God like never before. I hope, if nothing else, this week has been a good reminder to you. A reminder to stop, to pause, to take a deep breath, and live in the moment. Keep the past in mind and the future in check while reveling in what is happening in the here and now. I can't help but think of an hourglass. The image of an hourglass. Think of it this way. The hourglass represents your life. In the grand scheme of eternity, we're here but merely a blip. The sand is moving from top to bottom, but we don't know how much sand is on top. and we can't stop the sand from flowing. Time is passing by us. The sand that goes to the bottom, we can never get back. Every day is a gift from God, and some of us are wishing it away or missing it as it goes by. The most important moment is right now. Every grain of that sand matters. And the most important person is the one right in front of you. Next week, we are continuing our movie series with probably, I guess you could say, the least recognizable of the ones I'm going to cover. It's a 2009 movie called Up in the Air. It starred George Clooney, and it's about a man whose entire job is to travel the world helping companies lay off people. His life philosophy is about being disconnected and detaching from things, locations, and especially relationships. Through the course of the film, he meets people who get him thinking otherwise. We'll explore next time why deep connections really are not just important, but necessary. Well, for now, as always, thank you for your continued support by listening to this podcast. I really do appreciate you taking time to tune in. Go out and share this thing. If you've been impacted by the words that you've heard or the messages you've gotten, share it with somebody who you think would do just the same. Thanks, friends. We'll see you back here next time when we'll have more for you on cue.